Today we're going to be talking about Alice in Wonderland / Through the Looking Glass from 1985. I love this movie, so don't shit on it too much, you guys.
I'm going to shit on it a little bit. The first portion of it is inferior to the second portion. Don't those opening credits kind of feel spoilery? There's something about the whole concept that, in my opinion, makes you want to love it, but it doesn't deliver.
Welcome to Yestalgia. I'm Basil.
Drew.
I'm Amanda.
Today we're going to be talking about Alice in Wonderland / Through the Looking Glass from 1985. Quick summary. A young girl named Alice follows a white rabbit down a hole and discovers a strange and nonsensical world called Wonderland. And then it continues into a sequel, but we'll talk about that. So, do we want to talk about our experiences with this? Do you want to start, Drew?
I had never heard of this version of Alice in Wonderland until Basil brought it up as something to watch. So, yeah, no idea this existed at all.
Asked and answered.
Have you seen the Disney one, though, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I've seen the Disney one, and I've seen the Johnny Depp version.
Ah.
I can call it Johnny Depp version because he's not the...
That one's quite different. Yeah. Mia Wasikowska.
Yeah.
Tim Burton, I guess.
There we go. Yeah, that's...
Yes, Tim Burton, Alice in Wonderland. There we go. That's the one.
All right. Amanda?
So this is another one of those that I know that I saw it while spending a summer at my grandparents' house, like a week during the summer or whatever. Watched a lot of movies over at that old place. This one was just barely registering in the memory banks. And I think it was because it was around the time that it released. So this came out in what, 83?
85.
85. All right. So yeah, that checks out. I probably watched it maybe 1 or 2 years after its release. So that's why it's not really all the way there, but it is a little bit there. So yeah, that's it.
You remember having watched it at some point, but have very little recollection, yeah?
Correct. I was probably like 4, not 4, maybe like 5 when I saw this. It was like one of my very first movie memories.
Mm. And have you seen the Disney version, just out of curiosity? Or any other versions, I suppose?
8 million times have I seen the Disney version.
Same.
The Disney version is tough for me because so many people, including myself, quote it as their favorite Disney movie. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but it doesn't have a princess. It doesn't have all these tropes. But it's also, like, in my opinion, not that fucking great, but whatever.
Yeah, it's good, but I can never call it my favorite at all.
Right. A lot of people do.
So, for myself, I have seen this. This is my pick. I've seen it a million times, particularly the second one, like the second part, the Through the Looking Glass. For some reason, I have caught that more often. We were talking about right before we started recording that, or maybe not right before, but we were talking about how they used to, on network television on weekends, have just movies playing through the afternoon, pretty much. So it would be movie after movie after movie on several different channels would do that. And so I had caught this many, many times. When I was older, I got the DVD. At the time, for some reason, it was split into 2. But I believe if you were to try and get a DVD now, well, who would get a DVD now? I don't know. Anyways, I believe that it later was released as both on one. And when it was split into 2, they did, to make it make a little more sense, they did take some of the end of the Alice in Wonderland part into the second part. But anyhow, this is my favorite version. Well, okay. I, for a very long time, have been really into Alice in Wonderland, like since I was very young. And I think in part due to this film, because I definitely didn't see it when it came out. I wasn't born yet. But I believe, like Amanda, I saw it maybe a few years later for the first time. And I just fell in love with it. And particularly what sticks in my head and always has, and I can never forget it, is Carol Channing's part which we will talk about when we actually get into the film.
Is she the White Queen?
Yeah, she's a gem.
Yes, she is the White Queen in the second part. But we can talk about that when we get into it. Yeah, so I actually don't really like the Disney one, and I'll say because it's fine. You know what I mean? It takes from both books. And because it is so recognizable, because it is Disney, a lot of things get attributed to it that are not really based on the original book itself, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I love this movie. There's another one that was a TV movie that had Martin Short in it that came out in the 90s. Also very good. Still really like that one. But yeah, this one's always has a place in my heart. So don't shit on it too much, you guys. No, I'm just kidding. I will probably shit on it a little.
I'm going to shit on it a little bit, just a little.
Yeah.
I will also say there are a lot of things to be appreciated about it. The first portion of it is inferior to the second portion, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the Through the Looking Glass part,
I thought was a superior watch.
I would agree.
I'll get into that in a minute. However, the first one did kind of get me a little bit. The second one did too. It starts real fast. It's really fast paced. I mean, that poor kid is falling down the hole immediately.
Which, that falling part is perfect effect.
Hey.
Just awesome.
Well, wait till we get to the Jabberwocky.
The Jabberwocky, we'll get to it. Sorry. Continue what you were saying.
It opens up with her begging her mom, can I please be involved in tea time? And her mom's like, no, this shit is for adults. She goes out to the garden to hang out with her sister, who is equally a bummer. Actually, her sister is way more of a bummer than her mom. At least her mom was like cheerful about it. Her sister says something that I'm going to have to fully fucking disagree with. Her sister says, when you're grown up, and hang on, I'm interjecting my own self here to say this sentiment was expressed a lot throughout the entire movie. And no way, sis. She says, when you're grown up, you'll cry a lot less. Hard disagree.
I think you'll cry about less things is sort of the idea.
Oh no.
The idea is that like a child will cry about spilt milk, you know, whereas an adult
And so will I,
won't.
because it's in my carpet and it's going to rot and it's going to stink and it's going to have roaches all over it. And I'm late for work and I don't have time to clean that shit up. And I've already been.
But you're not crying exclusively because of the milk. That is the difference.
I kind of am.
Because I've thought about that before too. Like the don't cry over spilled milk, which I have absolutely done stuff like that. But it's almost never about the milk itself. Like, yes, this is an addition to all the other things that I'm upset about.
So to build upon this, very quickly after this, once she falls down the hole, she's doing the whole eating stuff, drinking stuff, getting bigger, getting smaller. And there's one part where she has this bright idea. She's like, I'm going to get small and go through the door. So she gets small and then she's like,
oh no,
I left the key on top of the table. And she starts to cry. And I'm like, girl, I feel you. Because my whole entire experience of adulthood has been forgetting my keys and crying.
Mine has been forgetting my keys, trying to figure out if I have enough time before the bus comes to go back and get it. And if I don't, going, I guess I'm not coming home after school or work or whatever.
This is why when my daughter doesn't cry a whole lot, it's weird. But when she does, I'm like, soft parenting when I understand your doll's head fell off. It's the worst because I know I am the type of person that leaves my keys upstairs and has to go back inside and go up the stairs. This whole thing feels like it takes an hour. So yeah, I'm relating to this movie in more ways than which I truly liked it. I'll get into that more.
Here's the thing. This is star-studded, but I think anyone young would not recognize a single person in this.
Right. No.
You know what I mean?
Girl.
It's more like star-studded of the time. Some people I don't even recognize, to be fair, but I know that they are revered in some way.
Same here. Most of them I did not recognize. There was Ringo Starr that I only clocked because I happened to pay attention during the opening credits. And hang on, don't those opening credits kind of feel spoilery? Like, you're showing me all these fabulous costumes and all these fabulous creatures right off the bat. Stop that. Don't do that.
It was about the story. The costumes don't have anything to do with the story.
Yeah. And I assume that because the Disney Alice in Wonderland had already been out for 30 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But this movie had twice as many characters. There was no unicorn in the original. No, I say original. There was no unicorn in the Disney joint. There was no griffin in the Disney joint. There was no lion.
That is actually a reference to, I believe, Scotland and England. So the unicorn is Scotland, yes, and the lion is, and particularly the way that England sort of rules over Scotland, but they don't care for that, obviously. And some of the atrocities that have happened to Scotland. So yeah, that is actually a reference to Scotland and England, the British Isles, as it were. I just wanted to interject that it's just about a flag within Scotland. There's a whole thing with the flag.
So we did have some, for me, only a couple recognizable faces and voices. The first one that really stuck out to me was the caterpillar.
Sammy Davis Jr.
And let me tell you guys, when I clocked this man, I was like, why in the fresh fuck would they make him the caterpillar? How's he gonna dance? Because he cannot be filmed and not dance.
Mm-hmm. Well,
they figured it out. It wasn't graceful, but it was something.
I guess I was reading about it that originally the floor was super duper slick and shiny the way they usually would do for film, I guess. And he was like, I really don't want to dance on that. I'm going to fall. And they were like, just do it. And then he fell and hurt himself. And then they redid the floor for him. So I don't know if he might have been maybe a little injured at the time too.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But yeah. Well, so I will say in that scene, it's him and her, the two characters there, change costumes. And they're essentially representing in the book where the caterpillar tells her a story and they are acting out said story, if that makes any sense. Because when I was a child, and even when I was an adult and watched it before, I didn't get that. And then I reread Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And I was like, oh, that's what's happening. They are acting out the story that the caterpillar tells.
Who else? Ringo Starr.
You didn't recognize Sherman Hemsley? He was harder to recognize, to be fair.
He was. And you would have thought that would have been a dead giveaway.
Mm.
And honestly, that was it. I recognized the White Queen's voice, but I couldn't put a name to it.
Yeah, Carol Channing, even when we were around the time that this was filming, she was more of a Broadway theater kind of person, I will say, than film. But she had done a certain amount of film. And I don't think she was one of the most famous people either.
Her voice, though, is iconic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know from what.
I know her, if for no other reason, parodies of people doing her voice.
Yeah. I mostly know the parodies of her rather than her. She also is the mother to Stockard Channing, famously Rizzo from Grease, the film Grease, not necessarily the play. Yeah. She's also done a lot of other stuff. It's just that's like one of the ones I think that she's most known for. I mean, if we're jumping all over, I'm going to talk about Through the Looking Glass, and that's mostly because that's the one I remember more. And I do agree with you. I do think it is somewhat better.
It has the lady firepower.
Mm.
Before we go forward, I'm going to go back a little bit.
That is fine.
Go back.
The part when Alice first sees the white rabbit, the look on her face, I was like, same. Because that costume was crazy.
Yeah, it is.
The costume and also his voice. And that man's name in the credits is Red Button.
Red Buttons. Yeah.
Makes me think that he is a clown.
I think he was a comedian. I believe that is what I read. Like a comedian and a musician. And that he had gotten his stage name from someone else, essentially.
Oh, okay. Kind of like when you're in the army and like you fart weird and people call you the squeaker or something.
Okay, I guess. I don't know. It sounds like a drag name, honestly.
Also, Basil, I'm going to anchor us back here a little bit. I hated his character. He annoyed me, but I loved his voice. And this is why I assumed he was a clown, because I loved his gestures. He was very much doing body work.
Yeah, would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to reference the book because I've read it a bunch. Actually, quick anecdote. I asked Billy to go get my book for me from the bookshelf, and I told him where it was. And I just said, get me Alice in Wonderland. You'll see it, right? Like it's a pretty big book. And he brought me, I have a pop-up book version of Alice in Wonderland. And I was like, did you genuinely think this was what I was looking for? And he's like, I don't know. It's pop-up, like it looks cool. And I was like, this is not what I was looking for. I did realize that I gave him the wrong name because the book that I was looking for has several Lewis Carroll things in it. So it says the best of Lewis Carroll, not Alice in Wonderland on it. But still, I was like, you brought me the pop-up book. Did you really think that's what I wanted?
You were like, I really fucking need this pop-up book. It has very, very pertinent information for me. It is imperative that you get me the pop-up book immediately. Thank you.
But anyways, I digress. What were we talking about?
That pop-up book is the deepest well of lore for Alice in Wonderland.
It's a dope pop-up book. I will say that. I really love it. It does a bunch of different things, not just the pop-up stuff. So it's cool.
The costumes were making me sweat.
Why? You thought you were hot? Because it was all fur. There was so much fur.
I was like, oh. And they're doing all kinds of gyrations in them. And they do look beautiful.
Yeah. So many of the characters are just like walking, talking animals. So, of course, they're all just wearing fur. And some of them are like prosthetics that make them look like a frog or a lizard or whatever. But
Basil, this is very, what am I trying to say? Adjacent to another movie that you have picked way, way, way in the past. It's called Cats.
That was me.
I did not pick that. That was Drew.
That was Drew?
Yes. But I do love Cats.
It was. Jesus Christ. So that's what that reminded me of, with the very articulate costuming, the very articulate makeup, the dancing. I mean, there's no comparison. You can't compare it to Cats. But still, it was there. There was also an element where I was sort of like, I'm going to fold some laundry while this is going on. Because the songs were one after the other, after the other, after the other. There were very brief pauses between the songs. And they are
mostly not great.
They're mostly not great. My favorite one was in the second half with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And who's the girl? Who's the lady?
Let me find out.
Yes. Her voice was molten honey. It was gorgeous. We should have paid more attention to those opening credits where
those
they told
costumes, the Tweedledee, Tweedledum costumes, kind of bottom heavy. Because it should have been like more rounded towards the top, I feel.
Weren't they that way in the Disney joint?
Weren't they like almost fully spherical?
Spherical. I love that word.
In the Disney?
I will say, I think it's based on the original illustration. A lot of the costumes seem like they're not exact. They're definitely not trying to do exactly what they are in the original illustrations, but they are very clearly taking inspiration from them, if that makes sense. But the actress is Edie Gourmet or Gorm.
Don't know her. But
I don't.
She
either.
had an angelic voice.
She's on a bunch of soundtracks, so I have to imagine she has done a bunch of singing. Let me look at her.
Yeah, I can tell you what else she's done by doing the name.
Yeah, and for actress, I'm only seeing like 10 things. She was in Ocean's 11, apparently. And The Nanny. Anyways, yeah, it seems like she actually probably has done more musical stuff.
So the second half had so much lady power. So much lady power. Like, their voices were grand. They looked like queens, literally and figuratively. And also it had my favorite silly boy, which was the unicorn. The second half hit.
Yeah, I think I prefer it in the books too. Interestingly, the Jabberwocky is from that. Like, some of the most famous things that people think of from Alice in Wonderland are actually from Through the Looking Glass. So Tweedledee and Tweedledum are not in Alice in Wonderland. They're only in Through the Looking Glass. Lion and the Unicorn also are. But I'm trying to think of what else.
The oysters and the walrus.
Yeah, but that's with Tweedledee and Tweedledum. I have also noticed that they tend to smash together the Queen of Hearts with the Red Queen in a lot of things as well, but they are different characters. Who else is from...
The flowers.
Yes.
The talking flowers are not.
Right.
It's funny because it is so accurate to the books, like to the point of just word for word dialogue and things like that. But it does have this sort of casing, or what would you call it? A story within this sort of overarching part about Alice growing up, which I do think was smart if you were going to do both. Because as is, the books are not really related other than having the same character as the main character. That's it. So having this sort of pretense of them going into each other and being related to her all growing up so that both are kind of connected in a way, I think was a really smart idea to have both of these stories actually connect. You know what I mean?
Chronologically.
Yes. Also, the Jabberwocky never actually shows up in the story. It's just a poem she reads, the end.
And it should not have shown up in the movie. Woof. I love the 80s, and I give the 80s a very wide berth when it comes to practical effects. Mm-hmm. But this thing was just like, and I don't know what kind of, hang on, I'm going to stop myself. I almost said, I don't know what kind of budget they were working with, but they were able to get Sammy Davis Jr., they were able to get all these motherfuckers, one after the other, after the other, after the other.
Maybe that's why they spent all their budget.
Exactly. The Jabberwocky looked pretty bad. Not the worst I've ever seen, but it was not gripping to me even as a teeny tiny baby.
It looks like a monster. That'll do.
Right?
I mean, I think its failings were mostly... I don't think maybe the body or the head are necessarily, but when you get to the neck after the head, it's all like a weird little waddle thing going on, and the movement was not very good with the arms and stuff. And I think that is where its biggest flaws were, because it being like a weird little slimy, toothed, monstery head thing is not exactly as much of a problem as the other parts. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It was worse than Godzilla, like OG Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a point in time where she ran into it for some reason. Like, she collided with its body. And by she, I mean Alice, obviously.
Of course.
And you could just kind of tell that she was colliding with crumbling fabric or crumbling tissue. I don't even know.
Yeah, they should have gotten Jim Henson.
Well, this movie also came out, I want to say, a year before my number one favorite movie, and I'm not going to delve into it too much, The Labyrinth, which it's super weird to see how this follows. They follow each other's, they know each other's freak. There's a child.
Okay.
So in Alice in Wonderland, you've got a literal little baby kid. And that's the thing that pissed me off a little bit about this movie is I'm like, she's fucking 5.5. Let her be ignorant and a dumbass and cry all the time and shit her pants and fart and pick her nose. I don't give a shit. Then we have The Labyrinth where they're like, you're 16 or whatever. You should be an adult. And I'm like, no, you should be a fucking idiot. A helpless, sniveling idiot. This is the gift that life should be giving to you, is the gift of being absolutely insufferable and have everyone forgive you for it. And then at the very, 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 very end, they do this thing where the child character, the 5-year-old and the 15-year-old, are welcomed into the adult world. And they both look at the mirror and see these characters that they have had this fabulous flight of fancy with, where they have learned to overcome their irrational emotions and da-da-da-da-da-da. And they say goodbye. And that is one of my criticisms of both of those movies. Say, let the girl be a little shit. She was amazing, by the way, that actress.
Yeah.
Yeah. For a child actor in particular, she was pretty good. Yeah.
Very good.
She was reading. Hang on. Here I go again. Combo breaker.
Combo breaker.
She was constantly being told by every whack job creature in this world, oh, you're being rude. You're just a child. You're being insolent.
Don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, stuff like that.
She was mostly being told that she was rude. But let me tell you, she was the most polite. She did the most polite wig snatchings I have ever fucking seen in my life. She was like, you better quit saying that because that shit's gonna hurt people's feelings. She was very astute as far as emotional intelligence compared to these characters that are telling her, shut up and stop being so rude.
I mean, there are times when she tells people to shut up and stop being so rude. Because they are usually actually being rude is the thing. So
they're pretty much reactionary, like, hey, don't call me out. That's rude. Don't call me out on my bullshit.
yeah, fuck you.
Children should be seen and not heard.
Oh.
I honestly didn't think that I would have as much to say about this movie as I do. Because I wasn't super duper enjoying it the whole time.
Unfortunately, the story is a story of just like meandering around from one place to another. Let's be honest. That's always been the story of Alice in Wonderland. It's just a girl sort of meandering from place to place in an unusual place.
Being thrown into situation after situation.
She's not a very active character. You know what I mean? The most she's ever trying to do is go home. So I understand that because my focus, I did have a hard time focusing. I had an easier time in the second half. Like I said, I do prefer the second half. I just think there's more interesting things going on. And there's significantly less people telling you long ass stories about whatever, right? But I think some of that has to do with the conceit of both books. So going back to the books, I'm going to keep referencing them. They are my favorite.
You kind of have to.
To be fair, I think I like the Wizard of Oz series of children's books more, but I do like them both very, very much. But the first book, Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, technically, is almost all like wordplay stuff. You
and
know
I hated it. Hated it.
But that's like a big part of the first book. And then in Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, which is, again, the full title, it is a literal chess game, is the idea. Published at the beginning of the book is a chessboard, and it tells you all the moves that Alice technically goes on.
Interesting.
So there's that part. And then there is a lot less of the wordplay stuff. There's some of it, obviously, but there's a lot more going on, I feel like, than just the kind of silly wordplay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One place I preferred the Alice in Wonderland part over the Through the Looking Glass part is kind of feel like on the train with those guys. I don't remember what they were all, but
a goat, a horse, and then a guy just covered in paper for some reason.
I feel like that was kind of the new version of the Mad Hatter and March Hare and the Dormouse. But I prefer that group over the train group, like, greatly.
Yeah, I agree. Because that's also the part where they're doing wordplay again.
Right.
And yeah, it is a little more interesting or successful, I think. Yeah, I would agree.
The train scene seemed somehow more hostile.
Oh, yeah. That's another part of it where it's like these adults are being so rude to this little girl. Yeah.
And I get it. It's all fake. It's all a flight of fancy. It's all Wizard of Oz stuff, kind of like you brought up. But the fact that they let her be just clap back, you better shut your mouth, you're hurting so-and-so's feelings. She basically contended with nearly, I would say, everything that these fools were throwing at her. She had something to say. She had some problem with it. She was calling out all of their fallacies. She was calling out all of their hypocrisies. She was calling out the Queen of Hearts, who I almost called the Red Queen, because they do mishmash those characters together, don't they?
I think they do a better job of distinguish them here, but in other media, they smash them.
That's
together.
what I meant.
Yes. Okay, just double checking. Yeah, okay.
Yes. By they, I meant like the world.
Yeah.
Not this movie. This movie does a great job of separating those two characters.
Because why would they be the same? One's cards and one's chess. Those are different things. Right. And theoretically, you could say that chess sets are more often black and white than black and red, but whatever.
I've never seen a black and red chess set.
I haven't either. But, also, I know one of the things that was changed was like the Humpty Dumpty thing, because I think there's a bunch of math things in Humpty Dumpty's in the book. So I think they were like, fuck math. This is a theater production.
But they did do the whole math production on the train, right?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The train was frustrating.
Yeah, even though it had Pat Morita. He was playing such an obnoxious character that I'll say it feels very both 80s and very theater. You know what I mean? It has a lot of those kind of conceits. Like, I remember at the beginning being like, oh my God, Alice's mom looks like she's just straight out of the 80s. She does not look like she's wearing a historical costume at all.
The sound effects were 80s.
Yeah.
There were synthetic instruments that were 80s. The thunder in the very last part of the movie with the Jabberwocky, that was stock 80s thunderclaps.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There is a thunder sound that is similar to the Wilhelm scream.
Yes, that's the thunderclap that I'm going to hear the moment before I die.
Yeah. Oh, anecdote again. I mentioned it at the beginning that I remember so well for some reason. And I think it's because Carol Channing is just like such a fucking presence. But that scene is the one that I can never, ever forget and have always remembered. And Billy and I like make a dumb joke every time we talk about Jam, about the song Jam Tomorrow, Jam Yesterday, but never ever Jam Today. And then I like will sing it almost every single time because it's just so deeply ingrained in my psyche. And I think the thing is, this is something that, like I said, deeply ingrained in my psyche, something I love, one of my favorite versions. I have a bit of a hard time even talking about it because it's like, what do I say? I love it. It's incredible. You know what I mean?
The water is wet.
Yeah. And I think I can criticize it. I'm an adult. I can look at it with critical eyes. The songs are really schmaltzy and not all great. Some of them are great. Some of them are not. Some of them are earworms. Like The Lion and the Unicorn. Not the song so much, but The Lion and the Unicorn were fighting for the crown. That part.
Yeah.
It gets stuck in my head. The Jam Tomorrow, Jam Yesterday, stuck in my head. You know, those are like the two for me that never leave my head. But I still love it. Like I still watch it and go, oh, I love this, you know?
So she was very good in the Jam Tomorrow, Jam Yesterday song. And I also thought that she was very, very good in I don't remember how it goes, but it was a duet. And it was supposed to be, I think, like a lullaby with her and the Red Queen.
Near the end, yeah.
Yes. And they ended up, I think, making themselves go to sleep.
They do, yeah. They sing a lullaby to themselves, basically.
I ship them so hard. They were beautiful and they had beautiful voices. The second half had so much lady talent, you guys. It was great. They were all just, yes, their songs were, and this was not their fault, their songs were paltry. Their songs were, weak. They didn't really grab ya. But their voices and their performances were so good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have very much else to say. I just really like this movie. Like, again, I particularly like the second half. And hold on, I'm going to go back to something you said about how the puppet for the Jabberwocky sucks.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have to put it in, is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were trying to make it like a part of the growing up storyline, but it never actually shows up in the books. So that was like a deliberate choice for them to say, we are going to make a puppet of the Jabberwocky to put in this movie, you know?
It was very deliberate.
Bad move, guys. Bad move.
Yeah. Not the choice. Yeah, unfortunately, because this was a TV movie and because it was in the 80s, finding stuff about the production was pretty difficult. Like, there was a few things like that Sammy Davis Jr. thing, but there's so little about it. I know the actress did like a couple other things and then basically stopped acting.
She was so good, though. Like, she could dance. She kept up with the dancers.
Yeah.
She could sing.
It was sufficient, you know? Like, sometimes it wasn't as good, but here's the thing. I like always give a certain leeway to children actors, right? There's so many bad ones.
Got a grade on the curve.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it really is.
I could be wrong, but I perceived this human being child as like 6 years old.
Oh, the actress was like 9 or 10, I think.
You're fucking kidding me. She looks like a diaper baby.
Okay.
You know what? This is why we have mommy on the podcast. Because I'm just like, Jennifer Connelly in The Labyrinth was a fucking diaper baby. I'm going to hold her and rock her to sleep. God damn it. Fuck me. She was like a diaper baby. A 10-year-old is a diaper baby. Everyone stop. Bless her heart.
I think that's a little older than a diaper baby, but
She's a
sure.
diaper baby. No one be mean to her.
Okay.
Everyone leave her ass alone. I'll kill you.
I mean, you're not wrong there, but...
I will also say the other thing that sticks in my head, but it's just because it's kind of weird, is the more pepper thing, because it's weird. And I think that all the time because I actually fucking love pepper and I put too much in everything. Well, too much for other people. It's perfect for me.
More pepper.
And every time I'm putting pepper in, I'm just thinking, more pepper.
That scene rocked my body because I was like, I hear a baby crying. First, you hear a baby crying. Then you see a dish hit the wall.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is a typical situation of like a heterosexual couple where the mom is fed the fuck up and the dad is over there playing fucking PS4. But it's two wretched old ladies equally being wretched. And she's just like beating the shit out of that not prosthetic.
You don't even really see the baby. It's mostly just wrapped up in it looks like it's like a wrap of...
It's just a wad of blankets.
Yeah.
It's just a wad of blankets and she's just like pounding it and shaking it.
And throwing it into the crib. And
that was a bonker scene. And she shoves the bottle into its mouth. And then the other lady comes over and like grinds pepper onto its,
face.
Supposed face. Yeah. And Alice
and into
is like,
the Duchess's face, but yeah.
Alice is like, y'all better quit treating that baby this way. You're going to fucking kill it. And she absconds with it.
In the book, they literally throw the baby at her. They like throw it and they're like, well, then you take care of it.
Yeah.
Or like the Duchess does that. Yeah.
Those bitches were insane. So much of this was just frustrating. I'm going to get into why this is frustrating to me.
Well, I will say just on the point of the thing, the baby then later,
like
a minute later, turns into a pig. And it's just the funniest line where she's like, well, if you're going to turn into a pig, then fuck off.
Then fuck
Parts
you.
of this movie are such a fever dream, man.
This is true.
Yeah, so much of it. Yeah.
This is true. You can't truly be mad at it, but you can be irritated at it.
Mm.
What about the chimp jump scare? I was like,
Wait, when was that?
It was shortly after the pig scene.
It was clapping at Alice with the pig.
Oh, okay. No, I do remember that now. You had to like jog my memory about it.
Every time I see a live chimp, I'm like, nope. That's the most horrifying thing I've seen all day. Like, I can't go to the zoo anymore.
Is it because they're kind of humanish?
No, it's because they fucking murder people brutally.
You know, we actually are not closest in ancestors to chimps. We are closest to bonobos, which are a much more
they're
kind
gayer.
And
yeah, they're way more gay.
Gentle. Yeah. Sure. If you want to say that.
Hey, look
They're
it up.
just generally
I didn't make it up.
They don't murder very often. Is what I'm saying. They don't do the murders.
They don't murder very often.
Yeah, no, they just be daisy chaining.
It's just like humans. We don't murder that often. But we do.
Oh my god.
Anyways, y'all want me to read the Jabberwocky poem?
Do it.
Okay. It's pretty short. It's not very long. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogroves and momraths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jubjub bird and shun, the frumious bender snatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the man zome foe he sought. So rest he by the tum-tum tree and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead with its head and went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, calhoo calais. He chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogroves and the momraths outgrabe. There you go.
I don't know how you read.
It's half nonsense words.
I don't know how you read that. I was like 60%, 70%. Is this English?
So a big thing with Lewis Carroll and his poetry was he would make up nonsense words, but the ideas behind them are sort of, you get kind of the gist of them anyways. Yeah. Sometimes they're portmanteaus or portmanteaus, however you say it, or it's like words smashed together. But okay, slithy. You can understand what slithy is, right?
That's like a snake.
Kind of, yeah, right? That's what I mean. So mimsy, right?
That's the name of a guinea pig.
That is the name of a book, actually. What's it called? I forget what it's called. But it is about growing up, so...
The Something Life of Mimsy or something like that?
Maybe, something like that. The Last Mimsy. There we go.
The Last Mimsy, yes.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, part of that is about like growing up and shedding the things from when you're a child, but also kind of like losing something within that. Yeah. Because I had to read it for a sci-fi fantasy class when I was in college. And I remember them being like, does anybody know the Jabberwock poem? And I was like, I used to. And they were like, exactly. You don't anymore because you didn't need it anymore, theoretically. Or you don't hold on to those things when you grow up.
It got displaced.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's displaced by things that are more adult.
No, it's not that you didn't need it anymore. It's that it got bullied the fuck out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop.
Hold on. I'm going to say, yeah, it got replaced, but it got replaced by other things and things I still like and sometimes are good. Like, I now am proficient in sewing, right? Maybe that's part of what that knowledge of like how to do those things. I like sewing. I enjoy it and it's useful to me. So is it necessarily a bad thing that I can't remember the poem by heart anymore? Yes and no. Do you know what I mean?
We have different experiences.
I'm just saying, like, it's not necessarily, right? You know, I also now know what a magic eraser is, and maybe that's the thing that replaced the Jabberwock, you know? And that sort of sucks because who gives a shit about a magic eraser? Do you know what I'm saying? Or, like, some sort of other obligation, right? Because I actually, to be fair, I am very lucky in that I don't have tons of obligations in my life. But generally speaking, there are other things I have to worry about, like money or bills or surviving or feeding myself and my family. Those are things that I now have to think about instead. And I get that those things are not necessarily the positive things, but I think there are other things that are. There's a balance when you become an adult. There are things that you now have been replaced that are good things and there are things that are not as good too, you know? I think we see a lot of the growing up and loss of innocence as exclusively a bad thing. And I'm just saying I don't think that's the case. I think there are bad things and that there are more bad things, but I think there's also more good things too.
So hang on. Loss of innocence and growing up, I think, are two different phenomena.
Well, yeah, but one comes with the other.
Nope, not for everyone.
Yeah.
I have cousins who, until they were 17 or 18, thought that smoking cigarettes made you intoxicated, like shifted your consciousness, okay?
Mm-hmm. But is that a loss of innocence? To lose innocence is to realize that's not true.
Right.
And that's a good thing, right?
It is a good thing, yes. However, I just have such a hard time with these movies that are so persistent on let go of your whimsy, let go of your happiness. And maybe I'm simplifying it.
I guess I understand where you're coming from. And I agree that there is something you do lose from becoming an adult, right? And growing up and maturing. You do, but you also gain other things. You gain good things. You know what I mean? It's weird. I kind of look at relationships like this too, where it's like being single and being in a relationship both have their problems. We act like one is better than the other, but you just have different problems now. Like, you know what I mean? When you're in a relationship versus being single. Not that it's bad. I think it's great and that the benefits are there, but you don't have complete free time anymore. You have to consider another person and you don't always agree with the other person is the other thing. So the same thing with childhood. It's like there are some great things about childhood that it would be awesome if we could hold on to, but we can't. And it's sort of just a trading for something else that's good and bad. It's both, you know?
So, okay, my point is coming from the fear aspect. I'm focused on the fear, which I think that fear outside of a survival mechanism, totally unnecessary. Get the fuck rid of it. We need to be done. To quote the owl in the second half of this movie, he says, "Until you conquer the fears inside you, you will never be more than a child." And I fucking disagree. And I'll tell you why. I have been through physical therapy with a physically disabled baby. Not just a child, but a baby. And it took her forever to learn how to walk. Not forever. Took her a very long time to learn how to walk because she had already surpassed that phase of toddlerhood, of babyhood, where they don't fucking fear anything. They're out here doing the utmost. They're climbing on shit. They're falling off shit. They're jumping off shit. They're ready to die and they love it. They love every minute of it. When my kid learned how to walk, she was extremely fearful because she had already passed that phase. She was using that to protect her. And I'm just saying all of this as an example, but it kind of irritates me because as an adult, and this is me again, I wake up and I am in fight or fucking flight. I am ready to rumble. I am like, who wants it? I didn't do that shit as a 10-year-old. I was not in survival mode constantly as a 10-year-old. And to say that, you know what? Hang on. Maybe the owl is right. Maybe the owl is saying you have to constantly be in a state of fear in order to be considered an adult.
I think that it's more fearing things that are real. Do you know what I'm saying? That's a certain amount of not wisdom, because to be fair, I have anxiety and I take medication for it. So I often fear things that are not rational. However, I realize that that is a not exactly fault. I don't want to say it quite like that, but it is something that is a coping mechanism that's not healthy. I think we can all agree on that. So I take medication to make that easier. And it does make it easier for me to understand what is a true threat. And there is wisdom in understanding things that are actual threats to you.
I guess.
Because the Jabberwock is not real. That's the big thing. It is a thing she read in a poem and she's making it real. And I think that's what he's saying more about fear, that the fear is not a rational one. The other thing is being fearful and still doing something, because that's the other part of fear, right? Being fearful of something and still getting done the things you have to get done is especially important. Like, if I was better at making phone calls, that would be great. I have an irrational fear of making phone calls. The strength I need is to do something that make a phone call for something that is beneficial to me, even though I know I am irrationally fearful about it, to still make that call because I know that is the correct thing to do, you know?
No, I get it. I agree. Because I'm afraid of real shit.
Yeah, and everyone should be.
And people have, I say people, but doctors have been like, hey, take these SSRIs. And I'm like, no, dude, the fear is real. The danger is real. Like, don't come up to Jesus on the cross and say, hey, take these pills. It'll make you feel way better about being crucified, dog. No, I refuse.
I mean, that's what morphine does, but...
Oh, girl.
Sorry.
Yes, but you're not talking about SSRIs now.
About anything.
You're talking about magic. You're talking about real magic.
Okay. I think that it is okay to mourn the things that you do lose from moving from childhood into adulthood. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because you do lose things, but you also gain things. And I think that that's a more balanced perspective on it, that there are things that you do get out of being an adult. You know, you do learn what is and is not rational about being fearful about. And you learn that, you know, good consensual sex is awesome. No, just kidding.
Freaky sex.
But you know what I'm saying? You get to do technically whatever you want because you know now what is safe and what is not.
You get to do bonobo shit.
You get to eat cake for dinner because you fucking feel like it. But you also have the wisdom to know not to do that all the time.
Right.
Do you know
because
what I mean?
You're pre-diabetic.
Yeah. Or just that will make you feel so bad. But you know what I'm saying?
No, I feel you.
Is there anything anyone else wants to talk about Alice in Wonderland?
I have one thing.
Yeah?
Is it just me, or the opening to this movie, it made me think of the opening of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I have never seen it, so...
That's what I'm saying. Like, it almost felt, for the purposes of this movie, it felt spoilery. Like, for the Dick Van Dyke Show, I appreciate it because it's like, not that I'm saying I was, you know, ever actively watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, but it kind of like told you what to look forward to. And I think that's what they were trying to go for with this. Like, oh, look forward to this guy in this costume. Look forward to that guy in that costume. But I was like, no, let me see the costumes with my own goddamn eyes when they happen.
Okay, you still will.
I think that's a thing they do even still. I don't know, because I never catch those. You know how sometimes they'll do live versions of theater, like as special events? I know they did Grease at one point. I think they did Wicked one year. Anyways, I think they still do that where they're like, blah, blah, blah is blah, blah, blah. Because I think they're trying to be like, look at how star-studded it is. Don't you want to watch it?
Yeah, I get that. But I'm like, just tell me. So-and-so's in this movie. So-and-so's in this movie. Don't show me their fucking beautiful costume.
I also think it was of the time. Like I said, I feel about this movie, it's so fucking 80s. Like, so 80s.
It truly is. It truly is. The commercial break.
Some of the way that they act a little bit, and then the styling of things, and yeah.
You can tell when there was supposed to be a commercial break.
Mm.
It like very rapidly faded to black and then it unfaded. And I find that so nostalgically pleasing. Like that, the commercial break is just chef's kiss. I love it. I love that feeling. I'm like, that's where the commercial was supposed to be, but now I don't have to endure it. Peasants.
We literally had to do this if we want to watch something.
Right. Yep. You had to like squeeze out that piss real hard.
I remember when Billy used to say the thing he didn't like about his aunt coming over was that when the commercials would come on a show, she would mute them and then try and have a conversation in between the show.
No.
And that she would also continue the conversation when the show came back, and he'd be like, no!
Was she drunk?
Only on Power.
No, she just wanted to catch up, and they were watching TV, I think. That's all.
I'm sorry. That is a thing that I have seen drunk people do. They mute commercials, and then they carry on the conversation at top volume, and you're like, God damn it.
Well, I don't think it was top volume. I think that's just something old people do.
That's something that drunk people do.
Maybe.
But it is.
Is there anything else we want to...
Sorry to keep extending the show.
No, please do. If you want to say something, I want to hear it.
The colors, and more so in the first half, seem to be very... I know it's a limitation of the cameras and visual effects from that time. The colors were, I'm sure, were meant to be all popping and bright and everything, but they seemed very muted.
They were muted?
It looks 80s, but it does tend to kind of pick up in the second half, I would say.
I thought the colors were very saturated. Like, I was like, ooh, that green is so goddamn green. That orange is so goddamn orange.
I've noticed it particularly in the first part, the flowers, not the living flowers in the second half, the flowers they showed, like they're red and yellow and stuff, they seem very dull. I mean, they had a lot of color, but they weren't.
I think it depended on the scene, though, too.
Everything looked very fake.
And soft. I think everything was kind of soft. Not necessarily dull in color, but softened almost.
That would be it.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it depended on the scenes, because some of the scenes, I would argue, were pretty bright. Others less so. Like when she goes and she's singing a song to the fawn, right? Like everything's kind of soft colored and misty almost. I know in that scene for sure. But then like with Sammy Davis Jr., he's bright blue and it's like very vibrant green behind them, you know. I think some of that might be the design too, because when they got into the chess things would be bright white and bright red all over the place. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it too. All right. Is that all we got?
Yes.
That's all I've got. Amanda?
I'm good.
Do we want to give our ratings now?
Who wants to go first?
This movie, both parts were good. As we said, Through the Looking Glass was better, more entertaining. But even though it's a mishmash of both books, I still think the Disney version, maybe it's the fact that it's animated and there's something you can get away with in animation that you can't get away with in live action. But I think that's still my favorite version of Alice in Wonderland, even though it's not my favorite Disney movie by far, like I said. Yeah, like we said, the songs, some were good, others not so much. The effects, like I said in the beginning, just.
It's from the 80s.
Right. So, yeah, like I said, got judged on a curve. So, okay, I guess. The cast was pretty great. My favorite character in the whole thing, my favorite character in all of Alice in Wonderland, which is probably why they got Johnny Depp to play this character, is the Mad Hatter. Like in all versions, I think the Mad Hatter is my favorite character.
Mine was the Caterpillar.
So, yeah, pretty good movie, especially for a TV movie. I'll give it a Yestalgia, flat Yestalgia.
Cool. Amanda, would you like to go?
Yes, let me go next. Because I'm going to say the sort of opposite of what Drew said. I find Alice in Wonderland, on the whole, to be weak and meandering and frustrating and unengaging and boring. Need I go on?
I think there's enough adjectives.
There is something about the Disney joint that makes you want to love it. There's something about the whole concept that, in my opinion, makes you want to love it, but it doesn't deliver. And these movies ring true to that. They adhere to that model. Okay? I already knew what was going to happen. I was already disengaged. Was already hoping for something to snag me in, but it didn't, because it was true to the material. Didn't snag me in. This is a definite nostalgia for me. It was a difficult watch. I'm actually going to kind of rip on this a little bit. The girl was beautiful. The girl was magical. The talents did what they were given. But only what they were given. That's exactly how strong they were. And that strength was not mighty.
I would argue Carol Channing was big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, loved her. There were parts of this movie that I did love. But all in all, I'm going to say just, Drew, I'm going to mirror you. Flat nostalgia.
Haha.
You're on Looking Glass me.
Yeah, you're through the looking glass of each other. Which one's the real one? No. Anyways. Yeah, I can be totally honest that there's no way this ruling is going to be objective for me. And it is so obviously a Yestalgia. Now, will I say the second half is better? Yes, that's always been the part that I loved the most. However, I just love that part so much. I forgive everything from the first part, where it's, I would say, significantly more meandering. This is a kind of general property that I have a lot of nostalgia and love for that I don't think can go away.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, I know I'm not the only one. And I know I'm going to touch on this very briefly. There are some allegations about Lewis Carroll. There's a lot of disputing some of that or all of that. There's a lot of debate. There is no clear cut anything about it. So it makes it a little easier for me to ignore it. However, separating the art from the artist here, that I do think this is such a good, and I don't know what else to say about it. Like, the work is good. I really love it. I have a great attachment to it. I understand why somebody might find these kind of meandering, because the stories don't really connect to each other. It's just this weird kind of world. And I know people have tried to make other things with this property where it makes a little more sense. And I think they did try and do that here with at least connecting the two stories. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the dumb meandering stories, and they're weird and they're nonsensical, and I'm okay with that.
I will say, Basil, real quick, you can't, because I should have mentioned this, you can tell that this was a labor of love.
Yeah. I do think everyone in it put a lot of themselves in it, or at least most of the people. And like I said, I think Carol Channing fucking blows it out of the park. And
she rules.
I think she really amplifies, the second part too.
Yep.
In particular. I think there's a lot more than just her, but still, she definitely brings it up. So yeah, for me, it is a very clear, very lofty, high, hard Yestalgia. I do understand, though, it is not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, because it does have some flaws in it. And I think as long as you're going into it going, I know this is kind of theatery and I know this is pretty 80s. So you're going to have a good time, or at least a better time going in knowing these things about it. But it's great. And it is available all over the place, honestly. So yeah, pretty easy to get your hands on. So I believe that has been our episode of Yestalgia for today. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again. Is there anything else we need to touch on before saying goodbye?
It's the usual. Make sure to tell your friends to listen to the show or watch it on YouTube.
Yep. That would be super cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Please put us on while you are folding laundry or doing the dishes. Just crank us up. Come on. If you have an hour-long commute,
give a listen.
As a matter of fact, if you're home and you have a phone and a laptop, put us on both. Listen to us on the phone and watch us on YouTube on TV or laptop.
You know you want to hear this sexy voice.
All right. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.